Revamping your whole livestream channel's artwork with only free resources while learning a little bit about graphic design in the process. Can you imagine that? You don't have to imagine, because that's exactly what we're gonna be doing right now. But I understand, for some of you the work is a little too meticulous and you don't have the time, you just want something that is ready to go. Well, the good news is that you can go to own.gg/GaelLevel if you want to download like overlays, banners, profile pictures, avatar makers. They have an emote maker where you can create one character that looks like you and then Own will automatically generate the rest. And even better, they have pre-made animated emotes, because you know recently a lot of people got access to animated emotes. Boom, here's your chance. If you want sub badge, bid badges, all of that is available at own.gg/GaelLevel. To be honest, you can do both, but let's bring it back to the creation of overlays yourself. All right, this is actually the second time I'm recording. I am pleased with this result, but I have to delete it because it took me 52 minutes to actually make it. So I'm gonna try to go way faster or explain stuff way faster. If you want access to this right now, it's gonna be on my Discord server, which is linked in the description, okay? But yeah, say bye to this one. Click new, boom. Okay, we're gonna start with a new, actually, let me show you what it looks like. So we go to photopea.com. This is the website that we're gonna be using. Once again, it's completely free. You're gonna have some ads. I don't have ads because the cool people at Photopea decided to basically give me premium access. All right, so we want our canvas to be 300 dpi. We want it to be 1080p, so 1920 by 1080. Okay, we want the background to be black. Let's click create. Let's press G for the paint bucket tool. We're gonna hold the click on the paint bucket tool to bring the actual paint bucket tool. We're gonna click here and find a light gray. Just like that. Of course, you want to ask yourself what exactly, I just clicked, what exactly you want to show. I want a text that says starting soon. I want a little place for the chat, and I want a labels bar that goes with my starting soon. Okay, so let's start by creating a new layer just to make sure that we don't accidentally draw anything on the background. Let's click on the rectangle tool, make sure it's the rectangle tool, and we're going to have like rounded rectangles is the look that I'm going for. So 15 for the corner radius of my rounded rectangle. The more you go, the more rounded it's going to be. So boom, let's do this, and let's create this. Let's actually bring everything in this time. Although I enjoyed the short look like that. The anamorphic look, if you will. Control A in order to select everything. Press V in order to go to the move tool, and then you can align vertically, horizontally, if you will. Boom. There we go. And then Control D to deselect everything. Double click on the icon of the layer in order to, when it's a shape, basically, in order to change the color. Click OK. And we like what we have here. Now we need to create the chat. So I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to click. Maybe I want them. You know what? Maybe I want them overlapping. All right. Let's go wild. All right. Let's break some rules in here. Overlapping chat, just like that. Release. Okay, that's nice. We might want to make chat a little lighter, slightly. Boom. Okay, I like that. Okay, cool. And now we're gonna create the rectangle for the labels bar. And maybe we want it to be, aligned to the left or to the middle. It doesn't matter, but left side feels right since we have the overlapping chat now. Okay, we need to bring in a couple of icons for the labels bar. So we're gonna need whatever you want to show. If you want to show follow, donation, subs, so heart for follows, a crown maybe for subs, or maybe a star. Star works. And for bits, you need like the actual shape of the bits. You can go to Google and find images with transparent backgrounds. I cannot speak. And the same thing for socials, because we do want to show some socials here. So I'm gonna click on the text tool. Right now, I'm using the font called Furore. Anyways. And we're going to click with the text tool. We're going to click somewhere around here, and we're going to type starting soon. And then we're going to select all of it, drag on the size word, boom, just like that. Click on the color here, make it white. Go away from it in order to click and move it while you're on the text thing, or you can just click on the move tool. It's underneath everything, that's why we don't see it. So we can drag it in the layers here. The order of appearance, just like OBS, the order of appearance is the same order in the list, basically. Okay, so that is pretty cool. I like it. We can start maybe shading a couple of things, but I want to work on the background a little bit more. So I'm going to click on the background, create a new layer, press B to bring up my brush tool, make it super huge, make the hardness super low, make it huger. Let's go with 2000. Boom. You can hold Alt on your keyboard. Well, no, you can hold Control on your keyboard and then scroll down in order to zoom out in Photopea. And we actually want to maybe choose a color at this point. I think that would be cool. Previously, I chose like a gradient between light blue and mint. And I think that's a pretty fantastic color. So let's go with that. I'm going to go with the blue here for that gradient. And maybe I pick the blue on this side, but it didn't pick the blue. So let me Control Z, go back here and actually go back up here and actually Actually, select the blue. Boom. All right, this is what it would look like. We can see how much effect it has. So I'm gonna Alt. Wait, it keeps alternating between Control and Alt for the zoom. Anyways, Control or Alt and then mouse scroll. I'm gonna go way down. We want it to be slightly subtle. Let's click on the color again and let's bring it down to our mint/green. And just like that. Now we can lower the opacity. Just like that. I think that's cool. We can create a new layer and go white this time. And we're going to put like a gradient at the top. Let's click until we see some results. But I want this to be also pretty wide. Don't worry if we can see the lines. We can go ahead and it's either not going to be that visible, so you don't worry about it. But we're good. We're good. Let's zoom in again. Alt works this time. Okay, cool. I actually want to lower the opacity on my background. Rectangle there, rounded rectangle. So I'm going to click on top of the layer source, lower the opacity just enough for it to go through for the eye to catch that. Oh, that's kind of semi-transparent, right? I actually want to do that on the chat also, just slightly. And while we're at it, let's add some shadows to those. Let's start with the chat because it's the most visible. We're going to click on the chat layer and we should name it. Double click on the name chat. All right, click effects, click shadow. And here we want something soft because we're going with a ton of gradients right now. So that's fine. We want to angle it a little bit better. We do have a source of light coming from the top. So we want it to be slightly realistic, especially if you're going with soft shadows. It's always better to go the realistic-ish route. All right, let's make the size a little bigger so it spreads a little bit more. We want linear burn just because I love linear burn. Look at how exaggerated it is. So I have to put like opacity needs to be like 1 or 2% or 6. That also works. Move the distance a little bit. No spread. Actually, distance is a little too wild. There we go. Play with the size until you're satisfied. Bars. All right, lower the opacity until it's barely visible. 3%. I think that's nice. And the cool thing here is that we can duplicate the shadow for everything. So I can click on the effects little arrow here, hold Alt on my keyboard, and then drag and drop it on that background layer. Right, so now I have a shadow here. Don't be afraid to double click on the shadow here and basically adjust it per layer. It's not going to look the same because the background is not the same. It doesn't have to be mathematically correct, right? It's like, oh, they all have 3%. It should look fine. No, your eyeballs is what dictate what goes and what doesn't. So I'm going to do the same thing. Hold Alt, drag and drop the shadow on the labels bar. Right now, for example, you can see there's a huge, like, I don't like how the distance is huge. So I'm going to double click on shadows and we're going to play around with the distance a little bit. And I select the wrong one, so let's click close. Labels bar is right here. This is why you need to name your things and also pay attention a lot. Lower the opacity to 2. And then click OK. All right, that's nice. Even though I'm not too happy about the text right now, maybe I want it to be centered. What I can do is double click on it, on the T basically, and then click here, the paragraph thing. And then I'm going to click Move Tool, Control A, and then I'm going to center it horizontally. And this is what it would look like if it was centered horizontally. But right now it doesn't have a lot of tracking. So I'm going to go here and find character. If you don't see character, you can click on Windows, click on character, it will appear. Boom. And here you have the tracking options. You click on the word and you drag to the right. And now you have more tracking options. You can even play with the leading a little bit because we want that to be a little more visible. Let's bring that up. And maybe I want it underneath the chat. Underneath the chat. There we go. There we go. We're gonna play around with it, maybe make the transparent layers a little bit foggy or whatever, but Control D to deselect everything. The problem is gonna come when I want to put social media, but we'll deal with it. All right, talking about social media, if you want some icons, the good thing to do here is maybe like change the color of the labels bar. Sorry, double click on the icon, lower it a little bit here. Here are the rules. If something is bothering you, just go ahead and change it a little bit, right? For example, this is too green. I want it to be more blue. I can select my brush tool, pressing B, select the blue, go back out again and give it a little bit more blue. So the icons, you can go on Google Images and download the PNGs with transparent background. Social media. So we want the most important ones, YouTube, Instagram, and this. If you're not making it for Twitch, you can put the Twitch. But if you're making it for, like, if I have to be on Twitch to see this screen, there's no reason why you should show me your Twitch because I'm already there. I drag and drop them. I could, are they all there? Cool. Press V, select them all, Control Alt T to transform them. And here, in order to not stretch it, you need to hold Shift, drag it all the way down. We want it to be tiny. It's very visible. People know what those look like. Press V to make sure you're on the Move tool. And then here, we actually want those to be on top of this layer. This layer being that background rounded rectangle. And then the order of importance, once again, my YouTube is my biggest channel basically, and then my Twitter is where I'm the most active. So YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Cool. Let's get rid of this. Nice. We're going to change the colors a little bit later. Just eyeball this until it feels kind of centered. You're going to put text anyways. And talking about text, we can just create that right now. Let me go. I'm going to click on YouTube. So hopefully it puts the text on top of it in the layer list. And I'm going to go and type get level. It doesn't let me like Control A on the text, which is kind of annoying, but you can hold Shift and then use the arrow keys to select everything. You can lower it with the size right there. We actually don't need the tracking to be that wide on the little text, but we're going to keep it that way. I think it might look a little cleaner. Boom. We're going to click on the move tool to deselect basically. I'm going to hold Alt. This is one way that you can duplicate. I'm going to hold Alt and click while the layer is selected, of course. Click and drag. Boom. I can hold Shift if I don't want it to bounce all over the place. Hold Shift, boom, and now it's only going like that. Good. Another method to duplicate, you want to leave some space here, is to hold Alt and then drag up on the layers list, and boom, you have another layer, and now you can drag it, and there it is. Nice. Okay, of course, my name is not get level and everything, but it doesn't matter. Actually, you know what? If this is going to be self-promo and it's going to inspire you guys to go follow me on Twitter, I run a lot of giveaways there, even though my latest giveaway didn't go that well. I mean, it went really well. Just the company stopped answering. I made a video about it. Go check my Twitter. And this one is just get.level, I believe. There you go. Boom. If you don't want it to grab attention too much, you can lower the opacity on those. So just select them holding Shift. You click on one, you hold Shift, you click on the bottom one. It's going to select everything in between. And then we can lower it just to give it that look. But we have, I don't know what my neighbors are doing. They're hitting the ground. Okay, Twitter, we're going to click on Twitter. We're going to click on effects and we're going to go with color overlay. We're going to pick the color here. Boom, click OK. Nice. If you want this to be like kind of different or part of that color scheme that you're going for, you can do that. One thing that you can also activate here would be like a gradient overlay. So I deactivated color overlay, activated gradient overlay. Click on it, click on here, double click on the black to pick your first color, double click on the white to pick your second color. So go for a mint-ish look. Nice. Click OK. And here you have your gradient. Now we want to, you know, make it a lot more random, bump up the scale so it blends in a little bit better. Nice. I actually like that look. So let's continue. So I'm going to click on the arrow next to the effects. I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard and click on the effect and then drag it and drop it on Instagram, and do the same thing, drag it while holding Alt, drop it on YouTube. And now we have all of our social media following that color that we chose, right? I don't like how bright the white part is, so I'm going to select it in the background, lower the opacity. The labels bar, for example, labels bar, we're going to have a $sign for sure if you want to show recent donators, but something else you can have is a heart for followers, a crown, or a star for your subscribers. Doing this the second time, I'm not doing it another time. So it's free, whatever, new layer. What shape do you have? Shapes. There you go. It's loading all the shapes that it has, and you can even look for shapes. So I'm looking for a heart. Boom, there's a heart. So I can just click here and then drag. I'm holding Shift to make it perfect. Otherwise, it's going to be all weird like that. And I can already save myself some time and make it the same size. So when I resize them, they will already be the same size. Isn't that beautiful? I double click on the icon to change the color. We want that to maybe be white. Yeah, that's cool. They're underneath that main layer. So we can select them again with Shift, drag them up, drag them up, drag them up, drag them up. There you go. What happened there? Okay, cool. Now we want one more, and that would be bits. I believe I have a shape for the bits, and if you don't, you can... Does that work? It does. Okay, that's perfect. It's a GIF though, like it's supposed to be animated, but it's probably like super big compared to the other images. Just make it the same size if you want to. You can also manually resize everything one by one if you want to waste some time, but I don't want to just show you how to do stuff. So if we're keeping those white, we can add a color overlay, right? Remember that color overlay we added at first? We can drag and drop it and turn it on. Okay, it wasn't on, but we selected blue for that color overlay. So that won't work. We can drag the color overlay to the recycle bin in order to can it, if you will. Now we can drag and drop the gradient overlay and the same thing while holding Alt to duplicate it, remember? And we're just going to do that for all of the icons that we just added, including the $sign. Now, boom, we select all of them using Shift. If this is taking too much space and it's messing with your mind, you can select them all and collapse those options. Control Alt T in order to transform place it around here. I'm gonna hold Shift and Alt at the same time to maintain proportions and also drag from the middle. We want it to be pretty small. Remember, everyone has basically a full HD screen. They're underneath the labels bar right now, so that's why you can't see them. Labels bar is all the way to the top for some reason. Let me drag this down a little bit. And now I'm gonna place them on top of the labels bar. There you go. I'm going to press Control, add the labels bar to that selection, Control G so that we don't have to worry about that anymore. And now we can place everything. So we want the heart, of course, to be first, like order of priority. It depends on what you value the most on your stream. That sounds so profound. Second one would be bits. I guess I didn't put donations, but hey, you can do it too. Showing you how to do it. All right. Remember to leave some space for the actual text. And just eyeball the placement. Now this is the part where we add a little bit of decoration. This is already good, right? This is already, you're done, all right? But we can add a little bit more decoration, if you will. Also, maybe I don't want my chat to be on top of this, although the overlap is cool, but maybe I don't want it on top of my text. So Control Alt T, of course, and you can shape the chat, like try imagining if it's readable, basically. And in this case, yes, it would be fully readable. Let's actually match it with the height of that text, the bottom text right there. Boom. I would like to add like a spot that is just for the chat. I'm going to create a rectangle. It doesn't matter like if it's in or out of bounds. We're just going to create a rectangle and we want it to intersect where we want the top part to be. And we're going to add our gradient. We're going to find our gradient. Okay. It's on the YouTube logo here and we're going to drag and drop it here. Boom. So that's our gradient. Now what we're going to do is hold Alt and then click on that layer. It's going to create a clipping mask. It's going to basically be attached to the bottom layer, which is our chat. And boom. Okay. And boom. There you go. And basically it's only visible where the bottom layer is visible. That's pretty nice. Let's create an ellipse. Let's create a circle and let's put it in the middle or to the side if you want. Middle might look cool. Make sure it's somewhere where it's visible, preferably on top of everything. For this one, I actually want the drop shadow of the chat to be on it. Cool. There's a little bit of drop shadow. We can always play around with it so it doesn't look too exaggerated. 2% opacity. Nice. Okay. And now we want a little icon. And again, those were from Google Images. We're going to make it white. Don't worry. Alt and Shift at the same time to drag from the middle and maintain proportions. And I can either put the gradient, which I'm probably going to do, or I can just make this white. But let's do the gradient. The gradient is on our bar here. Let's boom. And there it is. And I think that looks pretty nice if you ask me. Maybe we want that circle to be slightly lighter because it's like closer, right? We're obeying the laws of physics and light. If you really want decoration, you can I like adding random shapes everywhere just to make it look good. I forgot the transparency on the labels bar, so I want to do that right now. So I click the labels bar. Actually, that's not the right one. There it is. Labels bar, so we don't get lost later, and lower that a little bit. What I'm talking about when I say details, you can just pick the brush tool, right? Make it way smaller, like 1 or 2 pixels. Let's go with 2 pixels for now. Hardness 100%. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer on top of everything. There's multiple things that you can do, but like this is the detail part. I can go here and do this. That's just a dot, right? Nothing fancy, but that's the difference between a detailed overlay and a non-detailed overlay. Instead of just being, if you were to describe it, that gives it more complexity, but we're going to do way more. We're going to do way more. We're actually going to go over the text. First of all, that text deserves a drop shadow. Let's add that to it. Let's find something that has a drop shadow, the chat, for example. Hold Alt, drag until you find the text that says starting soon and drop it. Nice. Now play around with it until it suits you. I'm going to bring it a little closer, maybe, yeah, 2% on the opacity for sure. That looks good. All right. And basically, I'm probably going to put this in time lapse. I'm just going to go and click around my text to make it more detailed, more futuristic, I guess. Just random detail. I can just put a dot here and I put a dot there. And then I hold Shift and then drag. Let me click once. Oops. Click once, click, hold Shift and then drag. So you see how that prevents me from dragging away. There you go. So that's pretty cool. Another thing you can do is click once, for example, here, and then hold Shift and click again, and it creates a line. If you want to do straight lines, that's how you do it. Now my brush is a little big, so let's go with 1 and let's Control Z a little bit. There you go. Brush again, 1. Just add a bunch of details like that. I'll see you after the time lapse. All right, so this is after all the details. Again, like this, I went pretty fast. You want to take your time for this. And of course, if you want to do like a be right back, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have to do this every time. But if you don't want to do that part, that's completely fine. Also, you can just add a little details like to the corner. You can add little dots here and there, which I like to do, or little squares, or sometimes I put the plus sign basically, and I just duplicate it everywhere and it looks just fine. I want this main thing to be affected by the light a little bit more, so I'm going to create a new layer on top of it. Select it by pressing Control and clicking on the icon. Bring my brush tool, of course, lowering the hardness, going 100%, or actually 2000%, I should say, 2000 pixels, my sync percent. Scrolling down here and back to my brush tool, and let's do click. There you go. Nice. Control D to deselect. Let's do this, and let's lower the opacity, top right of the layer bar, of course. Now there's also like the other step, which is easy step, is go find an image that kind of looks like, you know, the type of thing that you would put in an overlay like that, depending on the game that you play. Of course, this doesn't look like a game, like an overlay for someone who's going to play Animal Crossing, for example, right? You would go with a cutesy thing. But Pix here is a website where everything is free, public domain, so you can use every image, even for commercial purposes, actually. So yeah. And we're going to go all the way down, and under our gradients and our background, we're going to Control V. Nice. Control Alt T. In order to scale it up, we're going to hold Shift in order to keep the proportions and not stretch. Never stretch anything, especially not a picture. Let's bring it up a little bit. I think that looks nice. We're going to Control Shift Hue. Control Shift U in order to desaturate it completely. All right, get rid of the colors. We don't want you to contaminate our scene. Let's lower the opacity way down, keeping it still visible, but not as much, just like that. Another thing that I like doing is Control L, which brings up the levels, and all the way at the bottom on the white output, we can lower that. So that basically everything that's white is going slowly towards gray. If I do this, basically it's going to be completely black. It lowers the contrast in a way that we can actually use that image as a background image without adding too much light to the background. Let's bring that up. We can still adjust that gradient that's up top, but just want it to be barely visible. That's not too bad. Let's duplicate it. I'm going to hold Alt, drag it up in the source list, and I'm going to select everything that is basically intersecting with it, right? I'm going to hold Control and click on that one. I'm going to hold Control and Shift in order to basically add to that selection with the chat. Boom. And then the labels bar, Control Shift and click on the icon. So all of that is selected, and we're going to create a mask for that layer. Create a mask. Nothing changed, that's fine. But we have a mask around that specific part. And the cool thing is that we can blur that part. So our mask is going to be selected once we create it. Just make sure you click here so that the image is selected, because we're going to add a filter to the layer and not to the mask. Wow. And click Gaussian blur. You can play around with the settings a little bit if you want more fogginess, basically. Oh wait, I should have turned off the other one so we can see what we're doing. Let's click filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And now we can see how it kind of looks with the lower opacity. That's not bad. Actually, let's lower this a little bit. So it's, so at 0, it's here and here and here. I think I like that. We're basically giving like some sort of foggy glass look. It keeps jumping. 10. All right, let's not touch it anymore. I think it doesn't like my brush being selected. All right, and we can bump up the opacity for that one actually. Let's see what it looks like if it's full. This is what it looks like. So it appears as if those layers are basically fogging up. We can lower the actual chat overlay opacity, this one, so that more goes through. Actually lower the chat color. We want the color to be a little darker because it's a little too gray right now. Now you can turn on that background layer. There we go. So it is clear, and this is basically fogging it, and you can lower that by a lot. So we do want our main thing to be pretty dark, just like that. This is pretty clean. I believe that's it. Like I don't need to tell you more than that. I think this is a solid looking, very, very clean. You can definitely add, like I really want to add more details, but I feel like this is enough. This is enough for now. Let's say that this is a part 1. Maybe I show you how to make an intermission screen in part 2. To be honest, your intermission screen, like you have it already. All you need is to cut out the part, the text part, this. Do I show you? Let me show you. So we want the background actually to have a hole in it, right? And we have our selection. I held control, clicked on this, we have a selection. What I would do for the intermission, it's gonna ruin my layer if I do that. Let me just duplicate it. Boom. All right, cool. I clicked on the lock to unlock the background so I can just duplicate the background into that one layer since it doesn't want to. Boom, okay, now we have the background. Okay, cool. So what I was saying is that we just need a mask on the background. So if I click, I have this selected. If I click on mask right now, it's gonna mask it, but that's the other way around. So while I have my mask selected, I can press Control I, and this will actually invert the mask. And you can see we're already getting there with the transparency. I'm gonna group up my socials. So all I have to do right now is add that same mask, basically delete that background thing right there, delete that background rectangle, and I can turn it off, and that gives me transparency, but I still have, you know, this, that, all of that. So I can hold Alt on the mask here, hold Alt and drag it on that layer. So that's one of the backgrounds, right? But I can do that on that one because it already has a layer mask. So I can hold Alt, just click once so I can see what the mask looks like. And now I can grab the paint bucket tool, make sure I have the color on black, and I can just boop, make a hole in the mask. Click twice for good measure, also for overlapping pixels, and then hold Alt, click once again. Now we're back. We're getting close. Now remember our other mask, we can drag and drop it with holding Alt on one of our gradients, drag and drop it in the other on the other gradient. Let's see, what is this? This is the thing that is keeping us. Let's do that. And there it is. We have a full transparent background. Now, all we need to do is get rid of the little details that we added all around the text and the social media. Social media is in that folder, socials. Whoops. All right, we can turn it off. No, that's not the right one. That's the labels. This is why you need to name everything. Labels, socials. So I turn that off. I turn starting soon off. You can go and find your detail layer. I actually want that little thing to stay, but I'm going to get rid of it just for the sake of time. And there you go. If you export this as a PNG, and you upload it to, like, you use it in OBS, you can just put your camera underneath it. And guess what? Yeah, part of your camera is going to be semi-transparent with the chat on top of it, which will look pretty good. So here we have intermission screen, intermish. All right. And here we have starting soon. So here you have a starting soon screen and an intermission screen all in one. What I'm going to do is export this as a PSD for Photopea, right? And I'm going to make it available to you for free. So you can come in here, modify or whatever. Make sure you take my name out of there, of course. And I'm going to publish online. There you go, Photopea. And there will be a link, and I'll share that link. The thing is, Photopea will keep it for a couple of months, so it's not going to be forever, but it doesn't matter. I just taught you how to do it for free, so you can make it from scratch if you have to. Again, the other one will be in my Discord, the first one that I showed you because I deleted it. Technically, all you have to do is go in here, double click on the text layer for the social, and change the name. Change the name. You double click here, you just put your own thing. If you don't want it, it's all there. It's all there. I don't have to explain all of it. Just check out the links in the description, and that's it. Now, even though I was trying to go as fast as possible, it still took whatever amount of time this video is going to end up being. You should probably take a little bit more time, but I just wanted to show you my technique, especially since I was improvising most of it. As you can see, like the previous one, I did it once, but it had nothing to do with it. It looked pretty different, right? Hopefully you were able to learn a couple of techniques, knowing that I've used most of the techniques that I use usually when I'm making overlays. I would probably take more time to make this. I would probably work on it, you know, 1 more hour or 2, but this is the biggest part. Like if you start with a starting soon, all you have to do is change the text to get an offline image, for example. Of course, get rid of the chat or the labels bar. Then you can cut parts of the overlay in order to make your banner, in order to make your panels and stuff like that. So it's easy to keep your branding as long as you created one big file, one big artwork. Anyways, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. If you would like to see more tutorials like that, also let me know. Okay, also let me know. This was pretty much almost uncut apart from the time-lapse part. So yeah, I just really wanted to show you how I make the overlays, so you guys don't complain that I just sell you overlays or just give you overlays. I also teach you how to fish. Okay, now go fish. All right, go out there. Oh, also follow me on Twitch. I stream on Twitch. Okay, so follow me. Go out there, make me proud, get a level. Audi.